got a couple of questions for each of you. And again, to remind members, we're going to do not by order of appearance, but we're going to do by seniority in 5-minute rounds. And you can go ahead and start the clock. I'll make sure I adhere to that 5-minute effort or try to. General, I want to echo a comment that Senator Rubio made. We desperately need to get 702 reauthorized. I'm going to ask you, in your experience, how that has been a useful tool, not just in terms of the counterterrorism efforts of the decade past, but on a going forward basis in terms of our near-peer adversaries. I think in many cases we have not done a very good job, the IC and the FBI and to a degree of the administration, in making clear that the 702 we're talking about today is very different than the 702 that was reauthorized back in 2018. There have been improvements. We need to do a better job of documenting that. But can you speak to the important role that Section 702 plays in terms of protecting our nation?
Thank you for the question, Senator Warner. In terms of Section 702, it is a critical authority for the intelligence community to be able to target foreign persons overseas to be able to collect intelligence that provides critical foreign intelligence on cybersecurity, counterproliferation, counterterrorism, and a whole host of threats. In my experience, it's absolutely essential. As I have reviewed products, in every product that goes to the senior leaders of our government, Section 702 has an impact. It's a critical authority, and it is also critical that as we use that very necessary authority, I've also seen through my experience with the National Security Agency a culture of compliance to ensure that through every execution of that authority, that the protection of civil liberties of Americans is a cornerstone of how that's executed.
Well, I agree, and I want your commitment that I believe when you are confirmed, that you will help keep the pressure on the balance of the IC and particularly our friends at the FBI on not only making the case of how essential this tool is, but also the level of reforms that have been put in place. Very briefly, because I want to make sure I can get to Mr. Casey as well in a question or two. But one of the things that we've had conversation with General Nakasone a number of times, the fact that we may not have seen from Vladimir Putin the level of all of his cyber tools, the fact that we have not, the Ukrainians have really stepped up, companies like Microsoft to help in the private sector. But in light of the fact that we've seen the recent China hack on Microsoft, how do we make sure that we stay abreast of particularly near-peer adversaries like China and Russia?
Senator, I think first and foremost, the National Security Agency, in terms of its role of foreign intelligence and be able to inform on threats, is critical, but the power of partnerships. And as you have seen over the last few months, the work that has gone on collaboratively between CISA, FBI, the National Security Agency, foreign partners, and also industry to produce very clear, unclassified, releasable advisories on how China is targeting our critical infrastructure and service providers is a good example of how to do that collaboratively to be able to illuminate those threats that attack our economy and potentially our national security.
Well, thank you. I think you mentioned this, Mike, in your opening comments, but I want to get it again on the record. Should you be confirmed, you will continue to work with this committee on our security clearance reform efforts?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. Yes, closely. And often.
All right, good. All right. We're going to hold you to that. Why don't you share? I mean, I'm not sure. I know the members of the committee and many of the folks who've worked with you here are in the audience, but I'm not sure all of the members of the public fully understand the role of the NCSC. Briefly, can you describe and what you think your priorities would be should you be confirmed?
Sure. The NCSC plays an important role in developing policy, overseeing counterintelligence efforts across the United States government. It focuses mostly on counterintelligence. They have a Center for Security Evaluation, the Special Security Directorate, which does personal vetting. There's a fair amount of supply chain work that they oversee and coordinate across the government. They essentially provide that function for the DNI that coordinates the IC in all.
And what would be your goals with this entity should you be confirmed?
If I'm lucky enough to be confirmed, I mean, I think, as I said in my opening statement, one, I'd want to ensure that our counterintelligence efforts are fully coordinated. There are a lot of players in that space, and we need to make sure we cover the waterfront in an appropriate way and evolve to meet the evolving threats. Two, to continue the work on the security clearance stuff that you already mentioned. I think there's a great deal we can do to forward that work. And then three, the Director of National Intelligence has asked me, and particularly to look at supply chain, particularly with regard to cyber, the cyber contents of what software the government is using is of deep interest and concern to her.
Well, let me, my final question is, and I want to make sure the press sees this for the record. We have this picture here. Is this actually a photo of you undercover? Will you validate whether this is really a picture of Mike Casey or not? I'd ask all of
I don't
my
think I can comment on that, sir.
committee members. Well, we'll take that in consideration when we come to the vote. With that, I turn it over to the Vice Chairman.